Hello everyone, this is Paukshte Fashion Workshop. I remind you that we post new videos every day. Today we continue working with the sleeves. Last time we showed you how to edge the slits. And today we're going to show you how to attach the cuffs and how to edge them. Pin the cuff to the wrong side of the sleeve. In the previous videos about the sleeves, we stitched the cuffs to them from the right side. Now we're going to use a different technique. In this case, we're going to stitch the cuff to the wrong side and make the seam on the right side. You can also make several pleats next to the opening. You can make as many pleats as you want. You can also make them of different depth. Be creative. Use your imagination. Natalie has pinned the cuff. This is the seam allowance. It's 5 mm wide. Natalie has pinned the cuff circle-wise. There is also a seam allowance here. We were planning to make a pleat on the sleeve. As I've already said, you can make several pleats if you want. We've decided to make one pleat next to the opening. Use your imagination. We're making just one pleat, right next to the slit. This is the slit, and this is the pleat. Next, we're going to stitch the details. The width of the seam is 7 mm. You can tag the details for stitching. It's enough for Natalie to pin them. We've stitched the cuff. Be very attentive. Here's the pleat. Now is the time to edge the cuff. Be very attentive. Natalie has pinned the cuff in such a way that the seam allowance and the pressed edge were directed towards the cuff. Start stitching right from this point. The width of the seam is 5 mm. You should be very careful. Cut the seam allowance from one of the sides. Do the same thing on the other edge. As I've already said, the seam allowance should be directed to the cuff. Join the edges, pin and stitch them. Start stitching from this point. Be very careful and attentive. The width of the seam is 5 mm. That's it. Do not forget to cut the extra piece from the seam.
Расправляем.
1 Next, we need to turn the corners right side out. This is how the cuff looks like now. We've stitched it to the wrong side of the sleeve. Next, we're going to iron it and stitch it from the right side. Let's go to the ironing desk. Natalie is ironing the cuff. The seam should be directed towards the cuff itself. Do everything just like we show you. Have a closer here. The cuff and the slit are very neat, because we stitched the cuff after stitching into the sleeve. There are no extra pieces here. You must follow the order of actions to make such a neat sleeve. Let's go back to the sewing machine. We need to tack the cuff. We need to make an accurate, beautiful seam. I remind you that we're going to stitch the cuff from the right side. Make sure that the seam allowance is hidden inside of the cuff. It should be accurate. Please be very attentive. The seam hidden inside of the cuff should be straight and accurate. Be very attentive. Next, Natalie is going to stitch the cuff. The width of the seam should be just 1 millimeter. The seam should be accurate both on the right and the wrong sides. This is a decorative stitching. Notice that Natalie doesn't make back stitches. She's going to hide the threads inside of the cuff. Let's have a look at the cuff. Remove the tacking. This is how the seam looks like from the right side. And this is how it looks like from the wrong side. Let's go back to the ironing desk. These are the threads at the end of the seam. Thread a needle, make a couple of stitches, and hide the threads inside of the cuff. This is the best thing to do. Make just a couple of stitches. Then cut the extra piece of the thread. Then do the same thing on the other side. Thread a needle, make a couple of stitches, and hide the threads inside of the cuff. When it's done, cut the extra pieces of the threads. This is the final ironing. The cuff is very beautiful. Have a look at the finished sleeve. We edged the sleeve with the bias binding, made a small pleat here, and we also showed you a new technique for attaching the cuffs. Be different and beautiful by Ira and Natalie. Subscribe to this channel, write comments, share the videos, press the like and the bell buttons. We would really appreciate your support. Thank you. Goodbye.